Hello everybody, my name is Thomas and this is How to Hookah. In today's first episode, we're going to talk about the fundamentals of smoking hookah. For instance, how does it work? What's the name of the holy part at the bottom of the stand? And does the length of the hookah changes anything? Stay here. Stay tuned. Before we begin, I have to mention the standard social media bullshit we all love to hate. So, if you want to see more from us, give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and don't be shy to tell us in the comments what you would like to see or you would like to know. Alright, with that said, pick yourself a bowl, sit down, and let's talk about hookah. So, how does it work? Well, the mechanics of smoking hookah are quite simple. So let's start with something basic. We can separate the whole contraption into 5 parts. The first one is the bowl with source of heat. It can be HMS, foil, or anything that you can put coils into or on top of it. The second part is the body of the hookah. I mean, this part and the part that goes into the base. The third part, and probably the most complicated, is the heart. It's this part that connects everything together. The fourth is the base with water in it, and the fifth is the hose with a mouthpiece that can satiate our oral fixation. Each of these parts serves its specific purpose when we take a pull from the hookah. The tobacco in the bowl heats up thanks to the coals above it and thanks to the negative pressure that we generate while smoking, like this. The hot smoke then travels through the body, cools down a bit because it conducts the heat into the body, and then travels down into the base where it gets cooled down a bit more thanks to the water, and also it gets filtered a bit. But the water isn't really that effective filter. After it cools down, the smoke rushes through the hose into our lungs where the nicotine gets absorbed into our bloodstream. That provides us with the buzz effect, the lightheadedness, and the, I would say, the slight heat in the peripheries, and also for some of us it makes us crave a different sort of bowl. Now, that is just the basic understanding of how the hookah works, but let's delve a little bit deeper. We separated the whole contraption into 5 distinct parts, but we can differentiate it a bit more, we can dissect it into smaller parts. Now, we don't have to spend hours and hours on different sorts of bowls and different base shapes. There's going to be a separate video for that for autistic analysts like me, so yeah, you have to wait for that. But now let's just stick to the next step and differentiate a bit more, and let's talk about different materials for the body and basically the physics of smoking. So let's start from the top, and here we have a bowl and source of heat. The bowl obviously can be quite different from one another. For instance, funnel works differently from the Turkish bowl, and also the material plays its role, the thickness, the glaze also has a say in how the bowl works. But again, that's for another video. Next part of this subsystem is the source of heat, which of course is coal, but there's a medium between the coal and the bowl, and that's for some HMD, for some it's foil, or it could be Bacha, Epilon, Provost, or something else. It doesn't really matter right now. What's important is that it conducts heat in a different way from one HMD to the other, and HMDs are different from foil, and so on and so on. What's important here is that the parts that we use can drastically change the outcome. So some bowls are better for dark leaf tobacco, some are better for blonde leaf tobacco. With some bowls you can get more aromas, more flavor, and from some bowls the tobacco flavor, the flavor of the leaf itself can be more prominent. So for people who like to smoke, let's say something that's more tobacco-y, some bowls, for instance old school bowls, could be better for their specific style of smoking. The second part is the body, or some people call it stem. It can be separated into two parts, which is upstem and downstem, which is separated with the heart. We can leave it for now. And let's ask the fundamental, the age-old question: does size matter? Well,
of course not, yes.
Ladies and dudes who are into this sort of thing can leave us a comment in the comment section below and tell us their opinion on in this matter. But for us, we will choose.
Of course you do.
But speaking about hookah, the answer can't be reduced to simple yes or no. It depends. The length can influence the pull and the sound of the hookah. Longer, in this case, equals noisier and harder to pull. Jesus. And also the girth, the diameter of the tube, as it say in this matter. Does this change the quality of the session? Well, it can, but it doesn't mean it has to. At the end of the day, this is fundamentally subjective, and also the pull can be changed with using or not using the diffuser, which is the little holy part that I mentioned before at the bottom of the downstem. And it works in a way that it disperses the bigger bubbles into smaller ones, so the pull is smoother and less noisier. But some people enjoy a smooth pull and silent hookah. Some people like it a bit noisier and a bit rougher. So who am I to judge? Just enjoy yourselves. However, there is an objective part to this. So let's talk about material. In this case, some bodies, some stems are superior to others. Let's leave the aesthetic part aside, the decorative part of it, and let's just focus on the functional part, which is the tube itself. Generally speaking, this part can be made of either glass or some sort of metal, while there are some stems that are made from wood or plastic or some other sort of stuff. I won't mention them anymore because I don't want to validate their pathetic existence. So, let's start with the obvious. If you want to have the best option, go for the stainless steel. I mean, there's no comparison. It's durable, it's clean, it doesn't absorb smell. I mean, it's the whole package. Maybe just one downside, and that could be the price. In my opinion, it should be the industry standard. But there are some dimwit manufacturers who fancy themselves, so there are other options which are honestly inferior. And let's talk about why. The first ones that I want to mention are different sorts of metal. It could be aluminum, it could be brass, and some other nondescript alloy. There could be many issues with using this kind of a cheap metal. First, they tend to be softer and less durable, so it could be damaged quite easily. Also, they tend to stain over time, so cleaning and maintaining the hookah pristine can get quite tedious. The last thing I'll mention is the oxidization or corrosion. The corrosion can slowly but surely eat at the material, and the byproducts of this process can release into the smoke, and you could possibly inhale them. So while you should never say no to panda, you should say no to these obsolete kinds of materials. There is a case, however, to be made for the traditional or old school hookahs made from brass, but they have to be clean, they have to be well maintained, they have to be polished, and if you are not, that diligent in keeping your hookah pristine, I would still say go for the stainless steel. The last material I have to mention is glass, and in this case, just no. it breaks so easily, and its heat properties are not optimal. This can have a negative impact on the session because glass has insulating properties, which means that it doesn't absorb heat as quickly and as easily as metal, for instance. This can result in overheating the water in the base, which can have impact on the quality of the smoke. If the water is too hot, then the excessive heat from the smoke doesn't have a way to disperse itself, so the smoke gets harsher and it just screws up the whole session. However, this can be corrected with the base and mainly how much water you put into the base. We will mention this in the fourth part about the base. But first, let's talk about the heart. As the name suggests, it's the integral part of the whole contraction. It splits the stems into its two parts, the upper part and the lower part, which we call down stem. It has a purge valve, and also it has a port for a connector for the hose. Now, it can get a bit complicated here, so again, let's just stick to the fundamentals. The first is the purge valve. So, the purge valve, it has to be effective enough to allow the residual smoke in the base to escape, but it shouldn't be light enough so that you can generate any pressure in the stem, and that's for reasons I will mention right now. The second thing that should be mentioned is the construction of the heart. It can be either open or closed. Open hearts are, generally speaking, hollow on the inside, and the closed hearts are full. In this case, the distinction is as objective as it gets. Generally speaking, hollow hearts are the less effective, because if you have a hookah with open heart, then you wouldn't be able to purge all the smoke from the base. It has to do with the construction and with the, I would say, aerodynamics, probably aerodynamics of the air inside. So if you have the option, always go for the hookah with closed heart. And well, yeah, that's generally basically it. Let's move on and talk about the base. So in this case, there are no traps or difficulties here. We can talk about three aspects that are important to us. First one is how much water is in the base. That's, quite easy. The second part is how much is the downstem submerged into the water. And the third part is how much air is left in the base. Now let's talk about each one of these. The amount of water dictates how much heat it can contain. So this is, probably the answer to the question of the size of the hookah. The length doesn't really play its part, but the size of the base does, because if you have a base which has like half a liter of water, it will heat up quite quickly, and then the smoke gets harsher, as I said before. But if you have a bigger base, then you don't have to really care about this. So with the smaller hookahs, you will probably have to get up after a session and change the water before you put on another bowl. And you should do that with every base, every bowl. You want clean water with, which has no aromas in it and is generally clean. But you know, some of us are lazy and we put a bowl on a hookah that was smoked before. But please don't be a degenerate who smokes hookah that sat on a table for 2 weeks with the same old stale nasty water in it. That's disgusting.
Disgusting!
Okay, the second thing, the submersion. It matters because it can change the pull and the noise or the sound of the hookah. Simply put, the more submersion there is, the harder it is to pull and the noisier the hookah gets. You know, easy peasy, moving on. The last aspect, but not the least important, is how much air is in the base. So the air, again, very simply, the more air there is, the harder it gets for us to generate enough negative pressure. That's for the simple reason that the air can expand while the water cannot. so with more air inside. So beware of the hookahs with monstrously big bases, because they won't probably smoke properly, and also they will overheat quite rapidly. Too fat, too bad. And finally, the most important, the most complex, the most difficult part of the hookah, the hose. Nah, I'm just kidding. Nothing to analyze here. Just please don't use any of those old school hoses which are made from Egyptian newspapers and rusty wire inside. They are nasty and you can inhale a lot of rust. So just use a plastic one, a disposable one, a silicone hose, or maybe even a leather one. And yeah, that's basically it. But I still have a few things to say before we wrap this up. Now remember, everything that I mentioned here is a part of the whole system. The hookah works sort of like an engine. The properties of one part have impact on the whole system and also on other parts. So separately they can't be really understood outside of the whole system. Altogether they create a symphony of physical processes and sensoric sensations, but apart they are just a bunch of tubes. Also, for the nitpicking individuals, I know there are some parts of the hookah that I didn't mention, for instance the tray or the optional molar sketcher. But the impact on the function is in this case non-significant, so I didn't see the meaning of delving into them any deeper. I mean, the ash tray is there for coats on the ash, and the molar sketcher is for catching the molasses, so the water doesn't get dirty and the cleaning process is easier. That's it. Okay, I'm not going to torture you with my ramblings any longer. You must be exhausted, and so am I. I hope you found this video useful, and if you reached this point, I mean, wow, you have some stamina. So give us a like if you want to learn more, and tell us in the comment section what you like to see. Alright, now it's time for me to say goodbye. And with that, I wish you a good day, thick clouds, and see you again next time. Bye.